Hey everybody, what's up? Hope you're all doing well today. It's your boy Yays back with another episode of the Yays cast. I'm here with a special guest, Matteo311. He was legendary enough to come on today. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, first off, thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure to be on. Love talking about VR. That's my whole thing. I'm a VR YouTube content creator. Just started dabbling in shorts and a little bit on TikTok, but it's mostly YouTube, some streams here and there where I talk about what's going on in the industry. I do like the news, and I just love the game, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, probably a little more focused around MMORPGs considering that's what I talk about a little bit, like VR MMORPG environment. I mean, I guess we could even start with your most sort of recent videos talking about the drop off of user base in VR with people going back to work from COVID. I've been talking about this a lot with people too. I've talked about a bit like even on my stream yesterday, how games have gotten a bit dry, just
Yeah.
because so many people have been on them that a lot of devs have just been milking the fact that there are so many people new to gaming that have no clue about what it is or anything to just abuse the player bases for money, and you see a huge sort of dry spot in gaming right now because of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's dry across the board, so it's not just VR.
That's true.
We have the next generation. Every generation's the next generation consoles. Um, but even they're not pumping out games. I have a PlayStation 5 and I'm barely using it. Xbox Series X, what is there to play?
Yeah,
So I mean, it's not just VR. We are coming out of a pandemic, which is a factor too, especially for VR. We were using VR to socialize. Now we don't have to.
yeah,
Now we can actually go socialize, at least here in the U.S.
yes.
So people are like, well, yeah, it'll be fun to actually go to a bowling alley or a bar or whatever. Plus, it's too hot for a lot of people to VR game. So it's a lot of compounding factors, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think it's partially a thing of that's kind of worrying coming from someone who's very excited for VR MMORPGs like Alicia and Zenith, needing these big player bases to maintain server sizes and maintain, the game itself running on a daily basis. So it's like kind of scary to watch these player drop offs because like, oh, you saw VR explode and it was really exciting because you're like, oh, we might have enough players to sustain Alicia or Zenith or whatever, and make an actual VR MMORPG that would be, a big deal. And it's like, ooh, now we're seeing this drop off the cliff in player base, and now it's much more difficult for these games to sort of stay alive, you know?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to have a major impact on them overall. If I've been watching VR for 5 years, been doing the YouTube thing for two, and it's been this like crawl, uphill
Mhm.
for a while. Then it gets super stale, nothing happens. Crawl up, and we've been doing this for a while. I mean, this is probably the biggest decline we've seen in 5 years. But like I said, there's a whole lot of factors, and there's just no love for PC VR right now.
That's
I
true.
mean, there's nothing.
Yeah, it's very focused on the mobile and the console market right now because that's where obviously most of the money is, you know.
Yeah.
Mobile gamers are more popular than far more popular than console and PC gamers, as sad as it is. um, and it's I mean it affects the market. That's how it is. Where the money is, where the demand is, that's where the market will lead, and so you end up seeing the Quest being focused on as much as it sucks to have Facebook controlling the VR market. Like I have a Rift S, but I do not touch the Oculus Store. I only have Oculus because it is required for me to use the software if I want to use my headset, which is annoying.
Yeah. I know. I think everyone's kind of sick of the exclusivity and the way Facebook is pushing the market. And it's in their best interest. If you watch their history, you should expect this.
Oh yeah.
You should know this is the way they're going. It just it's just upsetting to some people who've been in early.
Yeah.
Like if you've been watching VR since the beginning, been in very early, the Quest 2 kind of reset everything.
Yeah.
It's letting so many new people in, and it's giving so many new people the opportunity to experience VR, and it's quality VR. The Quest 2 delivers in standalone better than like what the Vive original, OG Vive did on PC VR 5 years ago.
Which is pretty
They're like
crazy.
it's a little bit better, which is pretty amazing. But for the people who've been playing for 5 years, we're like, oh, it got better, better, better. And it's like, oh, now we got to take a step back and wait again.
Yeah. And, I mean, you have Valve obviously doing their extent in the competition, but Valve is a lot more focused on advancing. They've even said this in their own videos and stuff. Valve is a lot more focused on advancing VR and technology as a whole than they are focused on getting a bunch of money from people buying their VR headsets. Whereas
Yeah.
Facebook is like, well, we want to advance it so we can get all the money and the control.
Well, I mean, Steam isn't completely, or Valve isn't completely innocent here. They want to push the market in a manner where they sell more games
Oh, yeah, of
because
course.
that's where they make all their money.
The Steam Deck. Perfect example.
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, obviously they want to push the market in that direction, but they've always been, they like to play around with new technology, try and, it's part selfish, like how do we get more people on our platform, but part like, can we do something cool?
Yeah.
Can we do something exciting and push boundaries? So they're
The
always, there.
Oh yeah, the Valve Index was huge, huge step. And then they released the HP Reverb 2 G2 for those of you who don't know about that headset. I 100% go recommend checking out if you have extra money. I mean, it's a really good headset. The controllers, from what I hear, are pretty but the
Hmm.
headset itself,
Exactly.
yeah. The headset itself has amazing visual quality and clarity and great even built-in speakers from everything I've heard, which is weird for a VR headset, but it's there, it's a thing. Um, and it's a good step in the direction of high quality VR for a lower price. It's a really good
Yeah.
direction. It just took 3 companies working together.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And I mean, I think it's a big deal that we see. I do think it's a big deal we see Valve stepping into the mobile market with the Steam Deck, right? And I mean, I know you made a video a little bit on VR with the Steam Deck, and could it be a
Yep.
possibility? Which I didn't think it could be at first, just because of the specs. But then looking into it more and finding out that the specs were actually higher end. The specs are actually higher end on the Steam Deck, and they're restricted by the wattage of the
Yeah.
battery pulling them down basically from the level of a PS5 to the level of an Xbox One is basically.
So, I mean, people are gonna undoubtedly use the Steam Deck for VR. They're
Oh
gonna
yeah.
experiment. They're gonna try with it. I'll tell you right now, it's gonna be mediocre. Like the what people get, it definitely won't compare to if you have a high-end machine. Obviously, it is much better hardware than the Quest, but you're introducing a lot more overhead. The PC VR games have a lot more overhead. Especially, how are you gonna use this for VR? Because right now, it only has a USB-C
Yeah.
plug. So maybe you can use an adapter and connect it to the display port, and it'll work with an index. But I'm skeptical there. I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
that's gonna work.
They have
But
said they have said they're gonna release something similar to the Switch where you can
yes,
plug
the
it in
dock.
the dock. But even then, comparably, a big thing a lot of people don't realize with software and hardware is the Quest is very much tuned specifically to be used for VR and literally nothing else. And so all of its everything can be going to that. The Steam Deck is built to run different software, Windows, Epic, like any browser,
Yep.
trackpads, triggers, like all that extra stuff specifically built in to play any kind of game on any kind of software that you can kind of imagine. And so it's less dedicated to that, which means at a lower end, it can run less of everything overall, but it can run more things overall.
So, I mean, they have a really good compromise. They definitely made some good decisions. They're using their Steam OS 3.0, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
based on Linux. I believe that's Arch Linux. Um, and they also have the Proton application layer. So basically, all of our Windows games are going to work.
Yeah.
All. I mean, there's the games that have special anti-cheat that they're trying to fix that don't work
Yeah.
right now. But for the most case, all games would work, and technically, VR would work because VR works in Linux. So technically, it would, but this is where you run into an issue. You only have that USB-C adapter. Okay, cool. I can connect that to a Quest. Okay, Quest isn't made for Linux, so you need Windows.
Yeah.
So now you install Windows on your Steam Deck. You introduce all this extra overhead, and your performance is poop.
Because you had to
Like
download
it's
all
not
this
gonna be a good
extra.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to run Windows 10, which takes its own specs independently. And
Yep.
then all the
Yeah.
other shovelware and crap that comes with it, and
Yes.
all that BS. But I do think it's amazing that Steam's allowing people, to uninstall the Steam OS and do whatever they want with it. I think
Yeah,
that's an amazing move. That's very pro-consumer.
absolutely.
Very pro-consumer, which I love to see from companies considering the
Are you
current.
getting one?
I actually, yeah, I put down a pre-reserve on it because
Yeah.
I have a Switch, but I barely touch that thing anymore because the prices of games almost never drop, and
No, they don't. You're
yeah,
right there.
because it's Nintendo, right? Nintendo doesn't do that. And I have a ton of games on my Steam library, and I know a lot of people who also have this issue, is that, like,
Yeah.
I would play them mobile, but I almost never play them on my PC. Stuff like Hades that
Really? Yeah.
I got kinda like, "Oh, yeah, it's fun, but I'd rather go play Splitgate or Skyrim or any number of other games that are available to me on PC," as fun as
See,
it is.
I originally got a Switch because my kid would always be watching like a certain movie on TV. I'm so sick of like seeing Frozen for the, 100th time.
Yeah.
And I want to be doing something, but I can't leave her. She's too young.
Yeah.
So I got a Switch so I could sit next to her and play some games. But the second I got the Switch, I said, I really wish I could stream my PC to this thing.
Oh, yeah.
That would be great because then I could play the games I want to play. I'm not secluded down in the mat cave, isolated away from my family. I'm still next to my kid. So for me, it's an ideal purchase.
Yeah, oh, no, it's amazing, and I mean, I got my Switch personally, I've told a lot of people this, I think the Switch's hardware is trash. My phone.
They do a great job with it though.
Yeah.
Like like it's impressive what they pull off with such low-end hardware. And I forget who I was just watching was discussing this, and it just all comes down to that, the heavy optimization, the low-level hardware access, that they could just pull every drop of performance out of this device, kind of like what we see with the Quest.
Yeah, I've looked at the specs, and I've looked at, like, being a person who's done a lot of, tech, and I've built my own PC and all that, and, like, looked into prices of all that stuff, and my phone, the Galaxy A50, right, is like an affordable Galaxy phone for $300, and I was looking at the specs on it, I'm like, "This thing is not even a third of the size of the Switch, and it has significantly better specs for the exact same price." And it's
Yeah,
frustrating me looking at things like, the hardware with, like, how the Joy-Cons, when you press the button on them, they have a little plastic lever, right? And that's such a small thing to save, like, 10 cents on each Switch that they could have easily implemented something like aluminum or something like that wouldn't wear down, and then your Switch Joy-Cons wouldn't slide off, but it's very obviously built so that you'll go buy more Joy-Cons from
yeah,
Nintendo. And so it's nice
yeah,
to see something pro-consumer coming out of Valve, typically for that reason, and I think that's
yeah.
part of the reason Valve avoided the Joy-Con style design is just so they don't have to deal with that kind of crap, and they can just build it to be as optimized as humanly possible for
Let,
tiny
let's
little
hope
thing.
they nail the joystick this time.
Oh, yeah, I saw a whole thing talking about that because people obviously are worried about Joy-Con drift with
I
how
know.
bad the Switch was. I just started getting Joy-Con drift recently, but I barely touch my Joy-Cons. I let other people use them. I don't. I
I
use
mean,
GameCube controller.
it's a lot. I mean, it's actually pretty common these days. PlayStation 5 has a serious issue with drift. They know about 3 different defects that they're saying like you're gonna get about 400 hours out of your controllers before they start to drift on
That's
average.
wild. That's
Yeah.
like nothing.
Yes. And then I mean everyone who has an index probably returned at least one pair of controllers. Mine actually lasted about 700 hours before I got drift, which is long compared to other people I
Yeah.
know. But yeah, my right controller got drift first because obviously, well, actually, no, it was my left because that's what you use to steer. So that got drift first. And then a little bit later, the right one started to get some drift. But it's just like so commonplace lately.
Yeah, I just know it's because we're moving more from the analog style system more to a digitized registration
Yep.
movement system. So
Like,
any little bit of dust gets into that
yeah.
under that joystick,
Dust
and
is one of like the issues that can break the PlayStation 5 controllers.
as
Dust.
stupid as it is, I find that so stupid that we have this super high tech hardware in 2021, and it's like, oh yes, you get dust in it, broken.
Yeah.
You used to be able to
I mean,
blow
I
into a
watched.
cartridge.
I know. I watched the teardown of it, and it's so complex now because we expect so much more. And the PlayStation 5 controller is amazing.
Oh yeah,
But like they talked about, okay, from you doing this motion, you're gonna warp this area over time. From you doing this motion, like this is gonna wear down and not center, go back to center. and dust gets in here and then just gunks up like the track of it. And like, yep, it's gonna drift.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's crazy to an extent. And I can understand it to some extent, but I feel like it feels as though it's anti-consumer, although you kind of know it's not, to the extent of like they're really trying to just push the boundaries on what they can do with a limited console and a $60 max cap for your controller price, because nobody's gonna pay more than $60 for a base controller.
Yeah.
So you want to put all this high-tech hardware in there that works really well, but you have this limitation of low price. Because $60 is a very low price, considering this thing, my Logitech G Pro, $120 for a
Yeah.
wireless
Yeah.
mouse.
But think about how freaking long they last. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I still I can't remember the model name, but I still have a Logitech mouse
it looks
for
like
like
the
25 years now.
it looks like
This
the
this, this no this
G503.
is this is the G502.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I have one in my closet. Forget what it is. They actually remade it not too long ago because people loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I would not get rid of this mouse. I loved it so much. It just felt so right. But I think I have it like 15 years now, and it's still,
Dang.
perfect and still precise and everything. But like I've started to like rub off the logo from using it so much. So like,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I used a. Oh man, you're gonna cringe a little bit at this, but my family wasn't exactly the most well off for a long time, so I used this little Logitech $5 like 2000 or 19. It was a 1992 gray mouse with just the most basic buttons and a ratchet scroll wheel.
Listen, I don't judge. I didn't grow up with my family and I have a lot of money growing up. I was in the era of mice that actually had a ball in it.
Oh yeah,
So my mouse actually had a ball in it, and every once in a while you had to flip over the mouse, open up the container, and get the gunk out of there, or
yeah.
your mouse didn't track right. So listen, I've seen it all, and I'm not gonna judge. I've gamed on the crappiest hardware ever, and now I'm just happy I can afford some good stuff.
Oh yeah, dude, the feeling of upgrading. Yeah, so I did have a few things I wanted to ask you about, revolving around like Alicia and Zenith a little bit, right? So I wanted to ask a little more in detail. How did you feel? Because I know you've covered a bit of Alicia, but how did you specifically feel about the Alicia Alpha in terms of like, obviously there were a lot of glitches and stuff. How did you feel about all the issues that were involved in the alpha?
So I just want to preface everything first by saying I'm very friendly with Team Studio 21.
Yeah.
So I talk to those guys. I'm playful with them. So I kind of get like a VIP tour every time I'm in the game,
Okay.
and I'm kind of wondering if it's skewed how I feel overall. Because they're always telling me what they're currently working on, what they're looking to implement, their grand like vision,
Yeah.
and I love it. I absolutely love it, and they're great guys. They're great guys. They are gamers. They are very close with their community. So, in that respect, absolutely love it. When I got into that game though, I said, okay, this is definitely alpha state right now.
Oh yeah.
This is, there is a lot of work to be done. And the more you go through it, I was like, listen, you guys are planning December release? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, release? And they're like, well, it'll probably be a beta release. I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
feel a little bit better.
I just personally do. I'm very like logistically inclined, so I do a lot of research and stuff into this stuff. Um, so I just know like what they want out of researching into them, and like I've done hours of research into both Zenith and Alicia, just websites, investors, um, stats, all that stuff, and obviously I have my own investments. I clarified this in my last video for a lot of people, but I have $300 invested in my own, so obviously I have some biases, to some extent. But I don't know. I went in and I wasn't expecting much like a lot of people, right? I was expecting it to be an alpha state because they very much emphasize that. And I was a little disappointed in some things, but I also I felt like they were things that were easier to fix than going in and having the world be broken, right?
Yeah.
So like a lot of people, right? We complimented a lot of people, including you. They complimented the beauty of the world, and everyone just said there's always something to look at,
It feels very handcrafted.
which is fantastic, and it's
Yeah,
very few games do you pay attention to everywhere you go. But like the
yeah,
first time I was exploring the world of Elysia, 100%, I was looking at everything and just wowed
yeah,
by literally all of it. I was just like,
yeah.
wow, this is so beautiful. This is pretty. Wow, this mountain. If you stand up on this hill up here, if you just walk up it right and you just look over, it's just beautiful forests and rivers and all this stuff. And I think that fixing, basic combat mechanics and stuff is a lot easier than hand modeling a world and having a bad world comparable to a good world. And so
Yeah.
I had more
I mean,
confidence going, if they have a beautiful world, they can definitely fix these things.
so I mean, it also comes down to, well, what are people looking for out of the game? Are they just going to jump in, mindlessly grind? Like the mechanics don't matter. I'll just sit there and do this for 10 hours a day, and
Yeah.
then I'll be level 60. It's what really people are looking for. I appreciate that because VR is all about immersion. And there were moments where you're just walking and you feel like you're going on some epic, hiking
Yeah.
trail, and then you come across like a river and a bridge, and then like the sunlight, because they have a day night cycle, like the sunlight kind of peeks through the trees and butterflies, and you hear like a little music, and you're like, oh, this is a cool little spot. Like
Yeah.
this is my picnic spot right here. This is nice. So yeah, I definitely appreciated that.
Yeah. And obviously, comparably to Zenith, you've talked about this even. It's very much more the modern standard MMORPG experience feel, so it's very much more brain dead. And I think part of the reason Elysia people are so on edge about it is Elysia just has way higher expectations. You've brought this up in a video even. Elysia wants to set a new precedent for VR MMORPGs in terms of what they do. Right? They want to have the skill system that they have, the anvil system or the class.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
blanking.
I'm blanking on it
Oh
too.
my gosh.
Preforge? Is it Preforge?
Freeforge. Yeah, yeah, I was thinking like Anvil something or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
Freeforge
it's
system.
their signal for it is an anvil. Yeah.
Yeah. The Freeforge class system, which is like super innovative, and I've never seen it in an MMORPG style game. I've seen it in I've explained it to a lot of people as Borderlands MMORPG form, with the skill tree. And that's like what excites me the most. And then you obviously have a lot of people who are excited for the skills. I have a friend who just wants to be a barkeep because that's like cool to him to just literally sit there with people and just they come in to get stats healed and stuff and you just sit there and talk to them and all that. And
I
so
mean, there's the people who spend their whole day in VR chat, so I can see that. And this would be a more, fleshed out world. So you would actually feel more like a bartender rather than going to the same room in VR chat with the same people, every time. Or
yeah.
maybe you start an instance and other people come in, but like this would have more of that. These are the locals. Oh, you're new to town. Stuff like that. It is definitely intriguing.
And I think I've brought this up a little bit in my videos, but this is something I want to talk about more in length in future videos. I think a lot of people are on edge with Elysia because it Elysia proposes to do something that no really VR game has done so far in terms of bringing the whole VR community and everything they like into one game. Sort of, you have social, you have hardcore, you have casual, you have explorers, you have everything available in this one game, and it's a really, really, really big deal because it could mean a lot, right? You have people who can run bars, they can run shops. They don't have to be a top like raider or whatever to be a top player, right? Like a township tailor, you could literally be like a township tailor and just go around crafting things, and that's really big because that's just not normal for MMORPGs, right? Normally the leveling grind is literally everything, but like Art and the team have said, you can level up just being a barkeep or being a blacksmith or whatever. It's not about going out and running. It's about working on your skills and leveling up your skills independently. And so I think people are just really on edge because Elysia is just one of the biggest planned VR games I think of almost all time just because of what it plans to do.
See, my biggest fear though is I feel like the ambition may be way too high, because if you go back 2 years and you look at Ramen VR and you hear them talk about Zenith, they describe some similar things. They describe a very active world where like you can actually like watch the NPCs walk around, and like they have their day-to-day chores, and you can interact with them much more than, hey, can I buy something, or hey, give me a quest. Now, from the current alpha state, we know that's not the case. And I'll be honest, I don't expect much to change from the game we're playing today and the game that releases.
Not at all.
Polish a few more mechanics, less glitches, bugs, all that. But overall, I don't expect the game to change much.
Yeah, Zenith's in a good state where it is, and I think the team has said a few times. I'm not as much into Zenith, so I know stuff about it, but not as much. But I know the team has said like this is sort of their like just bug fix at this point, and this is basically the full game.
Yeah.
And they're just adding in the rest of the stuff now.
And and that's what I would expect when you're 6 months out from launch.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that's what I would expect. And that's why, when we start dealing with Elysia, they want to do so many amazing things. They sound amazing. I believe in the team, but uh, do they have too much ambition? When are they going to have to scale back?
yeah,
Because they still want to be on the quest. Well, I mean, they are going to be on the quest, so we know that comes with its own limitations. Might not just be graphically,
yeah.
because there's other stuff going on. But from what I've seen, I think their head is in the right place. They're moving in the right direction, but they're probably pretty far out before they have a fully stable, all the features we want to see type of build.
And yeah, and to some extent, I think also there's a sort of thing where, from what I understand, the pre-alpha, right? A lot of people are like, well, why were some of these mechanics more complete in the pre-alpha? And talking to some of the moderators and stuff in the Discord and all that, because I've done a lot of that. I've talked to like Saxophonist and all those guys, and just gotten a feel for what the devs think, and like watch what the devs say, and talk to Art and that in the backer chat and stuff. And from what I understand, it's partially a thing of they have a lot of the mechanics solid, but their new like dude came in, their new mechanic, like it's server mechanic and code mechanic or whatever, and said, "Wow, a lot of this stuff like works, but it's not coded well." So he was like, "I basically want to take it and just make it coded well."
Yeah, efficiency is going to be important for an MMO.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to compress a lot of things. The games are huge, especially with the world like Elysia, where they plan to have an absolutely massive world. Holy cow, it's like World of Warcraft size.
I mean, I just obviously we want to jump in. We want to see more. I have seen more stuff than was in the alpha, like what you're talking about. I saw some of their spell casting system, which was pretty freaking cool.
Oh, yeah.
On par, if not probably what I saw better than Zenith. But I really think it's going to come down to how combat feels. Like
Yeah.
Zenith, combat has almost no feel. It's very like I'm just gonna keep casting this spell. This is me casting my lightning bolt, and like the server sync issue is pretty rough. So guys will attack you while they're not looking at you.
Oh, yeah. I've
You'll get
seen
hit
that.
from people like yeah, you'll get hit from people from like 7 feet away. Um, it looks like physics don't exist in this world in combat. And at least Alicia felt a little bit better, but it definitely doesn't feel like something like Boneworks,
Yeah.
which I don't think they'd ever really be able to do in a large scale game.
Yeah.
Too much physics going on. But even like Carnage Chronicles is like I think where these games should try to get to. I don't know if you've played Carnage Chronicles. Have you tried that?
I've seen it. I haven't played it, but I've seen gameplay and I have an idea of how it works.
So it's a 4-person RPG, co-op RPG. When you play it alone, it feels much more refined. Like combat is pretty good, and like physics refined. It feels meaty. When you play it in co-op, it gets a little hack and slashy because everyone's just swinging at a guy at the same time. So it gets hack and slashy, but it still has a good feel to it. And like I even said, listen, I'm willing to sacrifice some of the MMO-ness for more of that, good combat, nice feel to it. But honestly, I think you should definitely check out Carnage Chronicles because it shows you like what a good fantasy RPG could be in VR,
Yeah, I'll
and it
definitely.
also has multiplayer.
Okay.
So like, I want to find. I don't necessarily need an MMO. I don't need a giant world like 50 people,
Yeah.
100 people. That's more than enough for me. Like I don't need this insane giant world. I'm okay with some instances. You don't want to hit an instance every 2 minutes because it breaks
Yeah.
immersion.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with some instances. I want a little bit more of that streamlined feel,
Yeah.
and it's tough for an MMO to deliver that.
Yeah. And I mean, it is genuinely tough because an MMO obviously wants to be that massively multiplayer experience, and obviously Team 21 struggles a little because a lot of them are artists and they want it to be perfect in every single way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I can understand that, and I think Alicia's combat is definitely going in the right direction. but
Yeah.
it definitely needs that hitbox fixing. That's really important to keep that immersion, especially for the game feel it's going for. And that's like a big struggle. That's very hard. I think that's going to be the hardest thing for them to fix is that hit accuracy and just making it feel like, with armor and stuff, making it feel good without um making it too hard for the average player to hop in and play the
Yeah.
game, like the bow issues, right? You had to pull the bow like back to like right here.
Well, I had an index. I'm using index controllers, so the index controllers had their own issues
Yeah.
that they're like that they after I gave them crap, they patched mid alpha, but like I couldn't run, or actually like I was accidentally like burning my stamina constantly because it was like pressing run for no reason.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, it definitely, staying on the combat for a second, it definitely felt more interactive. You felt like you were swinging at a guy and making connection. How accurate it was, definitely not perfect,
Yeah.
for sure. Definitely not perfect, but at least you felt like you were engaging in combat.
Yeah.
Like when you play Blade Master in Zenith, it kind of just feels like you're swiping the air.
I've
You
watched
know?
a lot of gameplay, and I personally didn't get in because I didn't have anyone to play with at the time before I got into Carnage. Um, and it was good. It was like I was watching and I was like, ooh, you kind of just stand there charging, and you're like, mash as quick as possible.
I mean, they did, certain things to make it, to make it more approachable. Because imagine if it was just swing as fast as you could,
Yeah.
everyone's gonna be dead tired and stop playing the game in like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So they made mechanics to kind of be like swipe, swipe, wait for something, swipe again. Like, this charge up and charge. So
Yeah.
they made the mechanics purposely slow you down so you're not like,
That makes
but
sense.
it's still, it doesn't have the right feel. Like, I guess the only way to really compare this is if you play a bunch of FPS shooters, or VR first person shooters, you pick up a gun like in Pavlov, and it feels like you're holding a gun.
Yeah.
You swing it around. Boneworks is great for that too. The physics, like you take a dagger and you throw it in the air and you flip it and stuff like that. You feel like you're interacting with these objects, and that's like the major aspect of the appeal. That real. It doesn't have to be one to one, but that realness, that physicality, it's just missing in Zenith completely. And I'm not here to just trash on the game for a while, because I know a lot of people will enjoy this game, and I've put in probably 8 to 10 hours already, and the majority of that I had fun. It's just personally not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Like I'm the person who plays an MMO and gets bored because the combat isn't engaging or fun enough for me. You don't have like these crazy things happen like in other games, like you shoot someone and then they fly off a cliff, or like or they ragdoll and it looks hilarious.
Yeah.
Like in an MMO, every guy attacks, comes at you, and dies the same way.
Yeah. And I was
And
actually so I think that's a big thing, right? Because I started playing Final Fantasy 14 with the big rush of everyone freaking out about it, right? So everyone's been like, "Oh, Final Fantasy 14, Asmongold," and I tried it out, and I've played level 50, and I'm enjoying it to some extent, but I definitely get that feeling of like, I just am getting bored of just 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 6, 5,
yep,
and it gets boring, which is why I was a huge Destiny fanatic, right? Destiny has that gunplay, that movement, the
yep,
bosses, the mechanics, all that, always, constantly, 24/7, and it's
yep,
it's way more interesting to me, which is why like Elysia draws me in, dude. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have hit reg, you have like armor, you have bows, you have swords that you have to swipe in certain ways with certain momentum in order to get full DPS out of them and all this stuff.
yes.
And
Like, uh, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
okay,
like exactly what you're saying. Like, when we were just walking around in Elysia, it felt much more like two people in a world, and like we came across like a big animal. And it's like, let's kill it. And it's not like, oh, that's a level 7 animal. It's definitely gonna kill us. Like We're like, no, just like let's get a, like let's keep our distance. Let's bow it to death. Let's run away when it gets close. And it felt like you were fighting an animal. It felt more like attacking an animal in real life.
Yeah.
It had, I don't want to say realism, but it had more of that feel to it. And again, Zenith is your traditional MMO where it's just like, okay, the tank, you pull those guys in so they only hit you. I'll sit here and DPS as hard as I can, and healer, don't let us die because we'll yell at you.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
that, and then that doesn't really appeal. Like you said, the free forge class system, it could be whatever you want type deal, and it's more like real life. You never know when you meet somebody like how proficient they are until you see them start swinging a sword or doing backflips or something. So like that's in this world too. I think they're gonna have like hell balancing that, but
That's one thing that I
if it's fun,
definitely.
it's fun. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one thing I was thinking about. I was like, man, there's gonna be some broken combination where you invest 4 points into druid and 8 points into rogue and 2 points into warrior, and suddenly you have 8200 health with maximum DPS that you shouldn't have on any other class reasonably in the game.
Yeah.
Because it's just
But
a busted
it
combination.
doesn't seem like the system will work that way. And I did have a conversation with them about this because I can't remember the name of it, but there was this superhero MMO years ago, like 20
DC
years ago.
Universe? No.
Nope, before that,
Okay.
I cannot remember it. But their original approach was this free form type of system. And they said they had to scrap it because what would happen is someone would go in and say, okay, I want to make Spider-Man. So I'll put, a couple points into jump and a couple points into acrobatics and a couple points into fighting. But everyone started like just making like broken characters in the pursuit of the hero they wanted.
Yeah.
Like you had to rein them in a little bit more because there wasn't a clear-cut path so that you were strong enough to keep fighting.
Yeah.
Like if you put 3 points in jump right away, let's say you're level 4 now with nothing but jump, your character sucks and can't do anything.
Oh, yeah.
And they said in like testing everyone was doing this.
Yeah.
So like everyone was like starting off putting points in like mobility because they want to swing or fly or whatever. And it's like, oh great, you can fly now. You can fly to the enemies and get beat up faster, basically. So like so it wasn't working and they had to scrap it and they went with traditional classes, tank and
Yeah,
DPS and healing. But I cannot remember the name of it.
that sucks. Throw it down in the comments if you know, guys.
Yeah.
And I think that brings up another point though. I think Alicia is planning, quote unquote planning. I want to put that there very importantly. Obviously to do it in a different way than most MMOs and stuff, where you don't directly invest points into your stats. You invest points into skill trees, right? So there's the druid skill tree that connects with, like, on the picture, right? You have the druid skill tree connects to like the titan skill tree, and so it's like they have certain skills that do certain things, and then your gear gives you stat boosts and your abilities and your all those things. Like your skill tree is more what you build around than anything else, rather than I want to have 28 strength, and I want to
Yeah.
one shot all the enemies. It's more like
Yeah.
you
And
have a
then
titan ability of I stomp and then I stab.
we had a lot of discussions around this, and I said, listen, if you guys go the Borderlands route, I'll never talk to you. Like, if you give me a level 1 rocket launcher that a level 50 pistol does so much more damage, we're not friends. Like, like I cannot. My brain can't stand that. It's like it's a rocket launcher. Rocket launchers don't have levels; they just blow stuff up. So yeah, I really couldn't stand that concept right there. I have a visitor.
A few moments later.
So the question is, where did we leave off?
That's a good question. I guess we
Rewind the
could.
tape.
I guess we could. I guess we could just talk about something. Moving on. I wrote
Oh, I
down
think I
some.
was on. Okay, I know where I was.
Oh, yeah.
So before we were interrupted, sorry, I was discussing the Borderlands weapon scheme.
Right.
How like a rocket launcher is a rocket launcher; it should blow somebody up. There
Yeah.
shouldn't be a such thing as a level 50 pistol
And a level
that
one
outshoots a
rocket
rocket.
launcher.
Yeah, that outshoots a rocket launcher. So they said they had those conversations internally. And, they said ideally, yes, that is not the approach we should go. Weapons should only have a minor impact. It should be the skill of the player, or rather your character. So if you put a lot of points into your sword fighting ability, you're much better with the sword. And they're like, look, we'll give you an example. Here's the best weapon in the game. Go attack that guy. You're barely gonna make a difference. And it's true, yeah. So it's really not weapon based. You will get bonuses. They do have some special abilities, but it's really more about how you progress your character. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really good way to go. And I think that it allows, because a lot of MMOs get locked out by, oh, you didn't grind hard enough here, or, oh,
Yeah.
you didn't invest your points intelligently into your gear or whatever, or like the right skill or perfectly or whatever. And so it ends up being this thing that locks out a new player because they can't get into the proper raid and they're just screwed.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the approach they're going for. But they need like a ton of balancing and tweaks and little issues they need to fix. Like when I was on my guided tour, he basically poked out like every little, you know, graphical anomaly. It's like, oh, here the grass is floating in the air, or here's a little gap in the river where you can see through where there should be water. And I'm like, you don't have to show me everything wrong. He's like, well, it's reminding me of what I have to fix.
Was that art?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like art. From when I've talked to him.
I mean, but I really hope that they could bring it all together. They do have that, like inspiration from certain older titles, but even like Dungeons and Dragons, and that's where my heart is.
Yeah.
Like since the conception of an MMO, you know, we were like, oh my god, we're finally getting Dungeons and Dragons in a video game. This is going to be amazing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
nothing comes close because nothing gives you that same level of choice
Yeah.
and control. But
Yeah.
I mean, VR is something that is definitely getting closer because you can express yourself so more, and they can pull off some limitations. So I think they know that and they want to try and get that sensation. Obviously, you can't capture it for real, but they want to incorporate some of that stuff. And I said, like, there's amazing things you can do, like certain races in Dungeons and Dragons have dark vision or infravision. So like you walk into a cave as, a dark elf, your eyesight changes.
Yeah.
But
is
then a
cool.
human would have to use a torch. So like it makes a difference, and that's the type of things I want to see in VR because you can only really do those in VR. Like you do them on flat screen, it's boring. But you do them in VR, it's amazing.
Oh yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Yeah, I think that's definitely, yeah, what MMOs, I think a lot of people, it's your story, not the game story, and that's where a lot of people get bored, I think, a lot of people struggle with
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 14 because it's very dependent on the story, the gameplay, whereas World of Warcraft is although World of Warcraft is digging its own grave right now, very build your own adventure, be your own hero, make your own legend with your friends that you'll remember forever.
The only MMO that ever, kept me sucked in for a really long time was Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Oh, that one's so
Um, that had, it had a great single player storyline, so that kept it going. It had this type of Dragon Age Origins feel where you every time you play a new character, you get a new origin story. But even they failed to deliver on their promises. I actually had a friend who worked on that game. He was working for BioWare at the time, but even they failed to deliver on some of their promises because I remember like reading about the game and they're like, yeah, no, you're gonna get you're gonna get characters that are companions and come by your side, and no, there's gonna be a perfectly good reason why your companions will look similar. No, there wasn't. Everyone walked around with the same stupid companions, and it's
yeah,
just like, okay, immersion destroyed.
destroyed.
And then it's just like, well, whatever. It is what it is. You're sucked
Yeah,
into the game. Enjoy it.
that reminds me, I talked to a guy. I know a guy who QA'd Destiny when it was in alpha, or like way before alpha, right? And he played it before all the copyright issues and the story got destroyed and rewritten and remade and all that. And he was like, "Oh yeah, the world was huge, and like everything that is in Destiny 2 was supposed to be in Destiny 1. Literally all of it, all the raids, all the or not all the raids, sorry, all the areas rather, all the like geographical areas that are in the game, and a lot of them actually, almost the entirety of Destiny 2 was supposed to be starting zones for each different race and class that you played independently. And he was like, it was amazing, but then they had this huge lawsuit where basically this one dude who was writing all the story and stuff wanted to be paid more because he was being ripped off, he found out, from what he was supposed to be getting paid. And so he literally took the story and copyrighted it. And then just ran
Oh.
away.
I mean, it sucks when scenarios like that happen. I mean, there's a whole issue with The Witcher and the author. And it's crazy. I mean, he had no claim
Yeah.
because he just said no. Like, video games are stupid. Video games aren't gonna make any money. I want my money up front. And I think it was something like $50,000 or something like dopey for his licensing. And then when Witcher 2 and Witcher 3 were major sellers, he was like, no, 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 you owe me more money. And they were like, listen, we'll work with you here, but you don't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah, you were the one who was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is gonna be crap, 50,000."
Yeah.
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 So,
How do we wrap up these MMOs? What are we thinking here?
yeah, I was gonna ask just final opinion on right now, I guess where you think both are in standing, and how you think they're doing.
So I mean, I think Zenith will be decently successful. I think it's they're doing a good job. People who are fans of VR and classical MMOs will come together. If you enjoy both of those things, and you'll enjoy the grind. You'll make some friends, and I think it'll be a really good experience. They did a lot right. They did a lot right. It's pretty impressive on the Quest. So you can't fault it too much. It just might not be for you. Like
Yeah.
like I said, it's not my style of gameplay. Elysia, I think they're overly ambitious. If they can pull off everything they're saying, it's going to be like the best game ever. But if they come close and it continues to evolve over time and the community, continues to support the product, I think we could be left with something really exciting.
Yeah, I think Alicia has a lot of potential, and it could be a really cool game. It could do really a lot, and I'm definitely excited to see what both games do. I've said this before. I think both games will be fantastic games, no matter where they end up, and I'm excited to see what they'll do. I'll make content on both, no matter what.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I just streamed Zenith the other day.
Uh,
But people were like, "You're not very enthusiastic." I'm like, "Well, I'm replaying everything I already played. Like, literally, well, not literally, but almost nothing has changed from Alpha 1 to Alpha 2. Like now, there's like a couple flying missions and a crafting mission, which I don't care for. Combat's exactly the same. So, I was just doing the same grind all over again.
Yeah, so you're obviously gonna be like it's like starting a new World of Warcraft character when you're already maxed out, or a new SWTOR
Yeah.
character when you're already maxed out. It's just you're not gonna have
Yeah.
as much fun as you did the first time.
Yep.
Yeah, but I guess that's where we're gonna leave it. Is both games are good. Both games are heading in their own
Yep.
directions. And they may not be for me or you personally, but they'll be great either way. And thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate you coming on today. It's awesome of you to do that, especially me being much
No
smaller.
problem.
And I guess this is the end of the Yays cast. If you enjoy, make sure to check out Matteo311 on YouTube, TikTok.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all over the place, but it's primarily YouTube.
Yeah.
I have a couple videos up on TikTok. I started some shorts. So like I'm trying to get like information out on a video game in 1 minute. So a
Yeah.
new game's coming up and it's just like, hey, this is the gist of the game. I think it's pretty cool. Here's like a impromptu score, but I've played through these games out. It's not like just the first impressions.
Yeah.
But yeah. So if you like that stuff, go check it out. But I do some more in-depth stuff. I like to do opinion pieces of where I think the state of VR is.
Yeah, and if you want to see more Yays cast and more Alicia and Zenith content, I'm gonna expand a little bit, I think, into Splitgate stuff too, talking about that. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate you hanging out with us today. Stay tuned for the next video I'm putting out, hopefully the week after this one. And hope you guys all have a freaking-tastic night. This is your boy Yays, peace and out, and I will see you guys in the next video.